إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him because He is worthy of praise, and His worthiness for praise comes from His beautiful names that depict His perfection, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the evils within ourselves and the evil consequences of our actions. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His peace and blessings upon the last and final messenger, upon his family, his companions, his wives, and all those who follow his way until the end of time. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. We remind one another to be people of taqwa, which means to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your day-to-day affairs and in all of your decisions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who have taqwa of Him, Allah will reward them by giving them truth, putting truth on their tongues and making their affairs always good for them. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the muttaqeen. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Amma ba'd. As many of you, I'm sure, watched the presidential debate. Many of us are probably for or against, and alhamdulillah, it's a little bit more tame than what we're accustomed to. MashaAllah, Mr. Trump has come a long way. But what was going through my mind personally was not the policies, was not who is the lesser of two evils. What I couldn't shake from my heart is the question, or the fact rather, it's not even a question, the fact that I know there's no trust. I can't trust either party. There's no trust. And this isn't an American Muslim thing. This is an American thing, unfortunately. Because of the lack of trust, you find all of these groups rising. There is no trust, and it's causing chaos. The lack of trust is causing people to question the Constitution and the whole entire system of democracy. This is, dear brothers and sisters, a very important point, because while there is huge need for economic change, for new policies, the fact of the matter is that there's no trust. What does it matter? It's not going to go anywhere. And just to show you how damaging lack of trust is to a society, between a society and their government, within families, or even within people of a religion, look at the behaviors of the state of Israel and their incessant lying, lie after lie after lie after lie. It has damaged the reputation of America. Forget about what we know of America, but at an international global level, it has harmed drastically the reputation of America. This is the result of lack of trust. And you know what? I saw an interview the other day by a British gentleman by the name, I think, David Miller, who has studied Islamophobia. And this idea, or this project of trying to smear the image of the Muslim in front of the world, especially in the West. That project was started in 1984 by none other than Netanyahu, who thinks he's James Bond now. It was started by him. And the fundamental goal of Islamophobia is to put in the mind of the non-Muslim, you cannot trust a Muslim. Not that we're just weird, Not that we have a different way, but you cannot trust them because they understand lack of trust means harm. It means damage. And even when you look at the Muslim community, there is a lack of trust between Muslim individuals. You know, the stereotype of, can I do business with a fellow Muslim? Well, I'm going to stay away. I'm going to do it with a non-Muslim. The lack of trust. This, dear brothers and sisters, is extremely important because one of the foundational elements of the religion is the beautiful word of amana, trust. And there are so many ahadith and verses that addresses the issue of trust, commanding us to be people of amana, and prohibiting us from being the opposite, people of khiyana, betrayal. And so take what the Prophet, or Anas radiallahu ta'ala says. He says, قَلَّ مَا خَطَبَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ إِلَّا قَالَ لَا إِيمَانَ لِمَنْ لَا أَمَانَةَ لَهُ وَلَا دِينَ لِمَنْ لَا عَهْدَ لَهُ. Anas radiallahu ta'ala says the following about the Prophet's khutbah. He says the Prophet in almost every single khutbah he gave made the following statement. Somebody who has no amana, someone who's not trustworthy, has no iman. And somebody who does not protect and preserve what they are entrusted with, people who break their promise, have no deen, have no piety. This is how serious it is. And most of us are familiar with the following hadith. عَلَامَةِ الْمُنَافِقِ ثَلَاث. The sign of hypocrisy, what makes a person a true hypocrite are three things. إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ وَإِذَا تُمِنَ خَانَ. Pay attention to this. What destroys a person's iman, what destroys their relationship with Allah, what makes them among the worst category of humanity is that when they speak, they're always lying. There's no trust. You can't trust what they say. And if they make a promise, they break that promise. You can't trust what they say. And if you entrust them with something, they betray the trust. There is no trust. They are people of betrayal. And these are the worst of people, whether Muslim or not. And so we Muslims, while we try and navigate the typhoon of chaos that has engulfed the world today, we have a role, a duty of preserving amana and honoring this concept of amana and continuing to live by amana in a time where there is none. Because if we want to get ahead in a positive, meaningful way that will bring benefit and fortune to humanity, well, humanity now more than ever, in terms of our times, is looking for someone they can trust. Or else most of what the politicians say is lies. Most of what the billionaire class says, lies. The media, lies. There is no trust. It's our role to be people of amana. And I'm going to present to us today three different categories, three different areas that we really need to pay attention when it comes to just the Muslim experience, whether American or abroad. And these three things are going to be common in our lives. And so while I just made the statement, people of khiyana, people of betrayal are among the worst of people, if you find yourself falling into one of these categories, don't see yourself as one of the worst of people. That's not the point here. But rather the point is for us to be aware of this concept of amana, trust, and to evaluate ourselves to see where we can improve so that we can return to Allah as people who have fulfilled their amana, and we can go back and meet the Prophet ﷺ at the pool of water, the Hawd, as people who honor the amana that he has left with us, the amana of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. So the first of these things is what's called amanat al-majlis, the trust when you are in a conversation, the confidentiality of conversations. Let me ask you, has the following ever happened to you? You tell someone something personal to you, nobody else knows, only to find a few days later somebody's coming to you and saying, hey, I heard this about you. How did you find that out? You know exactly how they found that out. That person who you told that secret or that personal information to went and started to run their mouth. And it reached one person to another till it came back to you. This has happened to all of us. That betrays the principle in Islam. Al-Majlis Amana. Our conversations is an area of trust. When someone tells us something, they are entrusting us with that information. So keep it confidential. And Ya Rabbi, subhanahu min ilah. May Allah be pleased with the Prophet ﷺ and increase his reverence in the hearts of humanity, how he disciplined his companions to preserve, and he helped them make the confidentiality when it comes to conversations. Umar radiallahu ta'ala, to give you an example, Umar wanted to marry his daughter Hafsa. So he went to Abu Bakr and he said, Abu Bakr, would you like to marry my daughter? Abu Bakr, he didn't respond. He didn't say anything. He just kind of left. Umar was really agitated. Okay, he'll take that as a no. He goes to Uthman radiallahu ta'ala. Uthman, Hafsa needs a husband. What do you think? Uthman doesn't say a word. Same like Abu Bakr. Now Umar's going crazy. What's going on here? Until the Prophet ﷺ approached Umar and said, Umar, I'd like to ask for Hafsa's hand in marriage. Afterwards, Abu Bakr went to Umar and said, Umar, the reason why I didn't respond is because I heard the Prophet mention her name. And I didn't want to share the Prophet's secret. He could have said, hey Umar, man, I got someone better for you. The Prophet's mentioning Hafsa. He could have said that. But he didn't. Because he understood the principle, al-majlis amana. Our conversations, we are entrusted with that information. Don't share it with other people. And wallahi, I ask you by Allah, how many people do you know who you trust with your personal information? How many people? If you have one, wallahi, you're ahead of the game. If you have one these days, you are ahead of the game. But if we were to go back to the time of the companions, you could say it to any one of them. And you would be comfortable knowing they're not going to share your secret. That's what we aspire towards. That's what humanity needs. That's who we need to be. So always remember, al-majlis amana. And it's attributed to the Prophet ﷺ that he said the following. Al-majalis amana wa ifsha'uha khiyana. When you're sitting with a group of people, what is said is an amana, it is a trust. So preserve that, don't share it. And sharing what happens in the private gatherings is a khiyana, it is a betrayal. Number two, it's the amana when it comes to husband and wife. And we know very well, globally, not just America, not just American Muslims, globally, there is a huge need for reviving the trust between husbands and wives. And I'm not just talking about those who are already married, but also those who are looking for potential spouses. Because in my conversation with young men and women looking for marriage, there is no trust. The women don't trust the men, and the men don't trust the women. It's a disaster. And even for those who are married, there is lack of trust. Is this person who I am married to really looking after me or no? The Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّ مِنْ أَعْظَمَ الْأَمَانَةِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ الرَّجُلُ يُفْضِي إِلَى امْرَأَتِهِ وَتُفْضِي إِلَيْهِ ثُمَّ يَنْشُرُ سِرَّهَا. Among the greatest amanas, trust, that you will be asked about, each and every single one of us will be asked about the following. Did you keep the secrets of your spouse? And among the biggest betrayals, as this hadith is saying, when a man shares the secrets of his wife. And yes, that includes to your mother. Yes, that includes to your sister. Yes, that includes to your brother. Whoever it may be, what happens at home stays at home. What happens at home is to stay at home. Nobody else has the business to interfere between that. If you need expertise and expert help, by all means. But going and sharing information to other people just to vent, no, that is khiyana. That is a betrayal. And it goes both ways. The Prophet addresses women. and says when a man marries you, he is entrusting you with his reputation, with his children, and with his wealth. Once again, for the ladies, when a man marries you, there is a trust that you are going to preserve and maintain and take care of his reputation. That means not going to your lady friends and talking about how your husband is so bad, how cheap your husband is, how your husband isn't fulfilling your needs. If you need to talk about that, go to the right person. Go to a counselor. Go to the imam who can help you in this regard. He entrusts you with the children, that you don't put in the minds of the children how bad their father is, how much how weak they are, and all of this stuff where the children begin to despise their father. That is haram. That is a khiyana. That is a betrayal. And also when it comes to their wealth, that yes, you have the right, you have your needs, you have the right to fulfill your needs when it comes to financial sustenance, to buy bil ma'ruf in a reasonable way, but also not to squander his wealth because, oh, maybe he'll do something. I'll keep him, under my grip by spending all of his money. That is a khiyana. That is a betrayal that each and every one of us, if guilty of it, will be asked about on the Day of Judgment. And last but not least, the trust between the parents and their children. Dear parents, please pay attention to this. I get more emails from children complaining about their parents than I do parents complaining about their children. And I'm not talking about the spoiled child who didn't get the iPhone that they wanted. I'm talking about serious issues. This isn't an American problem. It's not an American Muslim problem. It is a global problem. I'm talking about children who come to me saying, my father wants me to marry someone I despise because that person will help his business. Or my father won't let me get married because I contribute part of my salary to the home. Or my parents refuse to let me marry this man who is a suitable spouse because he's of a different culture. Oh, he's not Arab, he's Desi. Or he's not Desi, he's something else. We all hear it. This is a type of khiyana, dear brothers and sisters. Allah is a type of khiyana. It damages relationships. Why? Because Allah has entrusted the parents with these kids to act in their best interest, not in one's own best interest. That is parenting. And if a child feels that their parents are truly looking after their best interest, then you'll find the love flourish. You'll find that these children are obedient to their parents. But children are smart, dear brothers and sisters. They have emotions, they have intuition. They are smart. And they can easily detect and quickly detect when their parents are acting in their best interest versus their own best interest. So be careful with this, and remember that they are amana. And I saw a study that's very beautiful. They told a mother to interact with their child, their infant child, facial expressions of the child. The child's having fun and laughing and that kind. And then all of a sudden, the mother or the parent, their facial expressions freeze. They're just sitting there looking like a deer in headlights, blank. And the child is staring at this. And the child is trying to interact and trying again and again until the child realizes my mother, my father is not responding to me, and they start crying. They start crying because they detect, they feel. And when they feel that their parents aren't responding to them in a normal way, they feel vulnerable, they feel scared. And so something that we're all guilty of, all of us, myself included, when it comes to the amana of our children, is because of these phones. We're all guilty of looking at our phones while our children are trying to engage us and talk to us. And although we might be busy with reasonable things, while we are looking at our phones, our faces are what? They are blank when it comes to emotions. And our children are trying to engage us and they see a blank face. What do they feel? They feel a disconnect. And that disconnect creates lack of trust. And that lack of trust breaks the relationship. And a broken relationship means an unstable home. None of us want that. And the Prophet ﷺ says, كل مسترعى مسؤول عما استرعى حتى إن الرجل يسأل عن زوجته وولده وعبده. Each one of us are responsible for a group of people, and we will be asked about that group of people, even our wives. The Prophet demands, we will be asked about our wives, we will be asked about our children, and we will be asked about those who are under our employment. So take this very seriously, dear brothers and sisters. In a time where there is no amana, in a time where there is no trust, we are the ummah of amana. So much so that the word iman and amana come from the same exact root. Hence, لا إيمان لمن لا أمانة له ولا دين لمن لا عهد له. Restating the statement of the Prophet, there is no iman for someone who does not have trust, who is not trustworthy. And the one who breaks their promises is someone who has no deen, has no religion. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters, to really motivate us to up our game when it comes to amana, to be people of trustworthiness, as the world looks on to the genocide going on in Palestine. They are noticing, people aren't dumb, people are smart. They are noticing the two sides. And the side that is going to win the hearts and minds of people is the side that has more amana, that's more trustworthy. We are fortunate enough that this regime, Netanyahu and his ilk, are the biggest liars in the world. It should be easy for us to show the world that we are more trustworthy than them. And it's already happening when you look at the polls, the popular opinion, when it comes to how people perceive the state of Israel. They have done tremendous harm to themselves. They have damaged their PR. And so that's an opportunity for us. Also the Prophet ﷺ says, التاجر الصدوق الأمين مع النبيين والصديقين والشهداء. Motivate yourselves. The Prophet ﷺ says, the honest business person. And he's mentioning business because business is the most difficult place to maintain honor, to maintain honesty and trustworthiness. The Prophet says the honest, trustworthy business person will be with the prophets and the highly righteous people, the Siddiqeen, and with the martyrs. That's something I want to aspire towards, and I hope that's something you want to aspire towards. But the hurt is very significant. When we feel betrayed, we all saw the Senate meeting, right? We all saw what that senator said from Louisiana. You should hide your head in a bag. Whatever that means. That shouldn't surprise us. I hope it no longer shocks us, although it's shocking. Where is the trust? What should I even do? I don't want to vote. I don't want to even participate. I don't want to do any good. Wallahi, the feelings are valid. But the Prophet ﷺ says, don't see it that way. And he says the following, أَدِّ الْأَمَانَةِ لمن ائتمنك إلى من ائتمنك ولا تخن من خانك. He says عليه الصلاة والسلام, if you are entrusted with something, fulfill that trust. But the one who betrays you, don't betray them. Just because someone betrayed us does not make it halal for us to betray them. If you feel betrayed by the Democrats and or Republicans, if you feel betrayed by the media, if you feel betrayed by the government, whatever government it may be, your feelings are valid. But the Prophet says that doesn't give you the right to betray them. So we must continue as American Muslims to be people of ethics and morals, to be people who are upright, and to be the best nation Allah has put forward. As He mentioned in the Quran, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. Why? You are the best nation. Why? تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. What makes the Muslim community the best is because despite the corruption, despite the tyranny, despite the oppression, despite the hypocrisy, despite the double standards, we continue to maintain our moral uprightness, but we continue to preach it. So be strong and participate. And remember, Allah is with you. وَاللَّهُ مَعَكُمْ وَلَنْ يَتِرَكُمْ أَعْمَالَكُمْ. Allah is with you and He won't let your hard work go to waste. This is a promise from Allah. So stay strong and don't let the words of these criminals and these evil people cause you to feel demoralized. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the people of amana. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the strength to maintain amana. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show the world that the ummah of la ilaha illallah is an ummah of amana. Allahumma اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins, overlook our shortcomings. May Allah accept our good deeds and increase us from His bounties. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be people who alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people, the people of Sudan, the people of Kashmir, the people of Syria, the people of Yemen, the people of East Turkestan, or wherever Muslims are going through tremendous difficulty. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be among them, among those who alleviate their plight. Allahumma ameen wa aqim as-salat.